To make life so much easier, we now will show the third movie about Nederman turning 75.
Oh, baby, every time I see you, feels like I'm free falling. I hear my heart goes boom, boom, bada, 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 boom, boom. Every time I see you, you're so fresh and clean. Yeah! Oh, baby, nothing can stop us, nothing can break us. When hearts beat together, boom, boom. You're so fresh and clean. Love is a sweet thing, sweeter than honey. Boom, boom, bada, 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 boom, boom. We're gonna rule the world tonight. Yeah, yeah. We're gonna rule the world tonight. Boom, boom. When hearts beat together. Bada, 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 boom, boom. When hearts beat together. We're gonna rule the world tonight. Boom, boom. For the very last time.
So this was the 90s, Sven, since you produced the movies.
Yeah.
This was the 90s.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So we're approaching today. But now we need to learn more about Nedderman. We've talked a lot about air pollution, the possibilities and the challenges, and also the problems. But now we need to learn from some Nedderman people. So let's give a warm applause to the vice presidents, Tomas Hagström and Hans Dahlén. So you do different things, and Sven has been very kind. No, you're not. Are you going to sit down now? Are you awake? No. But you do. I mean, Sven has been very nice to us all, not showing any organizational charts, and you won't do that either.
I can if you want to.
No, that's fine. That's fine. We're happy to live without that.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But you are based in the U.S.
Yeah, in Charlotte, in our America's head office.
And what are you doing there?
I'm responsible for the division process technology, which is basically, you can say, all our larger engineered products.
Okay.
Yep.
And you are based here
In Helsingborg.
in Helsingborg.
Yes.
And doing what?
I'm managing the division called Extraction and Filtration Technology.
Okay.
So that's more geared to the downstream manufacturing type of industries.
We will learn more about that,
A little bit.
but not in detail.
Of course not.
No, good. Thank you. The floor is yours.
We didn't bring any drawings neither or anything like that. We can find some if you
Oh,
like.
I'm so sorry about that. Okay,
Okay, good.
please.
Yes, should I start?
Yep.
Okay, so first I thought I'll give you a background. Well, maybe I need this one as well. Yeah. First, I thought I'd give you an example on how technology has changed society, how it's been driving productivity and changed how we do things. So if you take an example, just as a regular shirt like the one I'm wearing, this one, to manufacture a shirt like this, costs something like $5 today. If you would go back to before the Industrial Revolution, what did it cost then? Yeah, that's of course hard to determine because they didn't have exactly the same shirt back then. But if you would look in today's money, it would be something like, we found some reference here, it's even like $500 in today's money. It might be 100 or 500, but at least it was much more expensive in today's. So how is this possible that everything has been so much cheaper and our purchase power has been so much larger? And that's of course driven by the Industrial Revolution. In textiles, as you probably know from history, the spinning jenny was, I think, invented in 1764, where they basically started mechanizing these kind of processes. And then the steam engine came and all these kind of good inventions. Another change that came was about completely new manufacturing technologies and ways of doing things. Like the most famous example would be Ford's assembly line for the T-Ford, where they really standardized on things. There, you probably heard this before. They said you can get it in any color you like as long as it's black. So that's how they standardized it. That took out a lot of cost. And that in turn led then to changes in society, how we buy things and where we live and where we work. People started migrating into the cities, you got the urbanization, and it really changed lives for people. And then it kept on going like that up until around the 80s, when the computers made their inroad to the society. And that really allowed you to continuously operate machinery in a much better way, drive continuous improvements, and make things much better. But the interesting thing where we are now, we are actually in an industrial revolution, the fourth revolution. So if you say that the computers and automation really was able to increase efficiency of one single process, then Industry 4.0, which is the revolution we are in now, are really changing business models. So now, the ability to network, combine many sources of data, computing power, artificial intelligence, and you name it, so on, that really creates a whole new ecosystem for how things work. Disintermediation, partnering, debundling, and rebundling again are all changes to how products are made, distributed, and used in general. So what are then a good example of someone who has really changed this? You're probably familiar with this company, Amazon. So if you say that, so what they have done at Amazon, they've really taken big data, analytics, artificial intelligence, and completely changed how we buy things and how we buy. So today, actually, online purchases is a significant part of retail. And we have seen several step changes in production and labor costs. So this has really changed how we buy things. But if you look at what they do at Amazon, it's still, to a large extent, traditional technology. They still have a warehouse, they still have a truck, they have someone driving the truck, at least until we get automated cars as well. I don't know when that will come. But the concept is they have taken existing technology, 90-80%, but they have then integrated it in together with analytics, connectivity, and data, and then basically changed completely how people are buying things. So an example would be all businesses are, of course, trying to forecast. We try to do that. How much are we going to sell next month, and how much do we need to produce, and all these kind of things. At Amazon, they have a much more advanced way of doing that. They gather all this data, shopping behaviors, weather data, tastes, all of these kind of things to really anticipate what you're going to buy. So sometimes the stuff you think you're going to buy or you're buying this afternoon, they already have it in the warehouse. It might even be on the truck towards the local distribution, because they are so good at these kind of things. And still, 98% of it is traditional technology. The difference is that they put it together by connectivity, data, and analytics. And this has changed and made it difficult for other companies who haven't been able to keep up with this development. So I live in the US, so for those of you who live there, a good example would be Sears. Sears was an enormous retailer back in the day, sold washing machines, all these and various types of consumer goods. And they were part of the Dow Jones index up till sometimes in the 90s. Then they were delisted, had all these kind of issues, and actually went bankrupt in 2018. And they were unable to keep up with the development and how to manage lead times, how to meet customer needs. And that is sort of gives an example how new players can evolve, and some other traditional players who's been around for a very long time who don't keep up with the development actually can be obsolete relatively quickly. So now I'm gonna hand over to Hans, who will talk a little, give a few insights to what we're doing within Nederman, and then I'm gonna come back and make some more comments later.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. Looking forward to that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what Nedderman does today and our thoughts for the future. So we are the clean air company. That's how we position ourselves. And the mission that we have is to protect people, planet, and production from harmful effects from industrial processes. And if we then look at a few examples, basically our business idea is that we create clean air to the market. And a few examples of industries which we work in is the heavy process industry, where you, for example, make steel. We are in metal recycling industries, where you have smelters and so on. We heard about that earlier today, that they have a big environmental effect. You can, for example, recycle alumina. And by the way, recycled alumina is about 90 to 95 less energy intensive than making new aluminum. Other things that recycles or you know, there's a lot of, I don't know how many telephones you have at home and so on, but there's a huge mountains of telephones and old computers and so on, and you have these electronic boards. And on these there are precious metals, so you crush these boards and you recycle the metals. So there we're also involved in this. Textiles industry, we're now world leader in that in our niche in the textile industry after the acquisition of Luva Group last year. And then we go to the downstream manufacturing industries, which is metal machining industries, wood and composite industries, and there's many more. So what you do in that downstream industry, you cut something, like you're cutting a wooden board, you're sawing that, or you weld on something, you weld on materials, or you grind, for example, to manufacture parts or final goods. And when you do this, you create fumes, you create particles, you create a lot of dust. And all of these things have adverse effects on people and their health, production efficiency, and emissions to the external air or environment, so the planet as well. And now let's dig a little bit deeper in just two different types of examples on what we have been working with. A couple of applications. So if you look at the welder, welders produce 35 to 70 kilos of toxic fumes every year. And depending on what type of metal you are welding, this can contribute then to increased risk of lung cancer or affect the neurological system. Your fine motoric functionality can be affected, or even reproduction. Other examples are dust. Dust is created in a lot of different applications. And dust is a health risk and it is explosive, and not a lot of people realize that. But dust explosions has killed numerous people and destroyed production units and closed down businesses. So dust is explosive, and that's obviously a risk for your health, but not only that. When you breathe these particles and get them deep into your lung, you get a lot of health issues. And you've probably heard of quartz lung, for example, one of those things. In recycling, you take lead recycling industries, where we are quite active into that. The workers working in those type of factories, they take blood samples every week for analysis to make sure that the accumulated level of lead in the bloodstream is not becoming too high. So all in all in this, managing your dust process and having control over that is very important. And it's very much related to protecting people, planet, and production. And that is what Nederman does. Here we go. Yes, we're celebrating 75 years of Addicted to Clean Air, as we have seen. And during these 75 years, we have created quite a strong value proposition to the market. And it consists of our wide range of high quality products that we deliver and that solves some of these issues we have been talking about. But also another very important factor is the know-how that we have built up during the last 75 years in various industries and applications around how to create clean air. This is a very important base of our value proposition, and it will be also in the future. So, what will happen in the future? We take the next step on our journey and we create insight. So what do we mean by this? We create insight to our customers so they are able to take control over their clean air process. Imagine a large production facility, much like the one we see on the picture here. Downtime is costly, of course. You need to avoid unplanned maintenance and production stops. Legislation in society increases. And we heard a lot about that. A lot of our customers actually takes this very seriously, how to comply with legislation. Creating a healthy workspace is of course the right thing to do, but it also has a positive effect on production efficiency and product quality. So managing the clean air process in a plant like this is very important. But how do you do that? And many of our customers, I think Sven mentioned this morning, this is not their core focus. Their core focus and competence is to produce whatever goods they produce, cars or furniture or whatever it is. So that doesn't make it easier to take this control. So what happens many times is that you have a person that walks around the factory, visually inspects critical equipment, and then makes notes of the performance parameters, sometimes on paper in the logbook. And then he walks to the next part of the plant. The problem with that is that 30 seconds later, this data is obsolete. And 30 seconds before the person took the measurements, they didn't know what was going on. So, and then a plant like this is, if you walk around that, it's like running a marathon almost, or you could probably feel like it. So it may take like 2 weeks until the person is back visually inspecting the same equipment. And during that time, don't really know what's going on. So the result of this is that you don't have control over your clean air process. If you did have control, you could, for example, recycle air back into the plant. If you can recycle air, you need less heating in the wintertime, less energy for cooling in the summertime. And if you're in a country where energy comes from coal-fired power plants, then you're reducing carbon dioxide emissions as well. So having control over your clean air process has a lot of direct positive effects on people, planet, and production, but it also has indirect effects. So how do we go from, maybe guesstimate to digital facts and control? What we're doing in Nedderman now is that we are launching the new future-proof smart filter range, and this will be launched during 2020. what this means for us is that these smart filters can be digitally connected, deliver real-time performance values 24/7. It enables us to build filter systems with a number of different sensors that is relevant for those applications and industries to measure continuously what is going on for all the equipment in a plant. That is the vision. By measuring this continuously, we know what is happening. We can predict when the filter needs maintenance, for example, so you avoid downtime, unplanned maintenance. You can generate automatic compliance reports from that data. If something goes wrong, you get an alarm and you can take a corrective action. And for the customers that really want to focus on their core process, we will be there to offer them online support packages or on-site service agreements to support them. So, going forward in the next 75 years, hopefully then our experience will, or our value to the market will be based on our wide product portfolio of high quality products, for sure. It will be based on the know-how, experience, and knowledge that we have gained from many different industries and applications on how to create clean air. But with the launch of the smart filter and relevant sensors and measuring methods, we will give our customers control. And that is the new thing. That generates a lot of new values. So we enable our customers to take control over their clean air process. So with that, Thomas, I invite you back.
Okay, thank you, Hans.
And an applaud.
Okay, so as I mentioned before with the example of Amazon, a lot of what they do is built around really good core competences in logistics, in warehousing, in forecasting, in purchasing, in marketing. So what they do is to a large extent built on existing capabilities. And in our word, going forward, our existing capabilities in our equipment, in our service offering, and so is also going to be important. And so what I wanted to do here as a next step is to take 90 seconds out of your time and show a video of one of our projects we have done. This is a project we sold last year. And it's a relatively large project. And the background here was that there was a power plant in Mexico, and they were having significant problems in their manufacturing, in their gas turbines. So what they were facing is that the air was so polluted that the gas turbine wouldn't work. So they manufactured energy, and then after a few weeks or months, basically they had to shut down the plant again, and then do a rework and then start it up. And that led, of course, to lost production, enormous impact on their financials due to lost production, maintenance cost, and so forth. So this is, and then we came up with a solution here and sold it to them, and I'm going to show you what the solution was. And so this is an illustration of our existing technologies. So let me show that short video here.
Nederman Micropulse filtration system ensures the turbine remains at 100% output and meets turbine manufacturer cleanliness requirements. The first stage filter removes gaseous contaminants. The cleaner moist air then passes through 2 stages of demisters, which remove the moisture from the air, and the dry air passes to the filter house. Most of the gas contaminants have now been removed. However, it is not clean enough for the turbine intake yet. The air then passes through cooling coils. This increases the mass of the air, allowing the turbine to return to full output. The cooled air condenses, and the water is drained to use in other areas of the plant. Larger droplets still in the air are then removed by the droplet eliminator vanes. Smaller droplets coalesce here and drain out to use elsewhere in the plant. The now dry air passes through carbon filters to remove any very fine gas contaminants. The last stage is HEPA filters, which remove the smallest particles, and the air is ready to enter the turbine. The air needed to ventilate the turbine enclosure is also filtered to prevent corrosion. Cooling is not required for this air and only passes through coalescing filters and one stage of carbon filters.
Yep. So that's one example. As we said, our values is to protect people, planet, and production. And this is an example then where we protecting production. This is relevant because, as you can see, this is a relatively complicated piece of equipment. This is a 20-meter tall structure, basically, and that we built and delivered here during last year. But so like Amazon, as we are trying to look at alternative business models going forward, it's still going to have to be based on our core competence around equipment, like for instance the one I just show you, where we sell filters, scrubbers, bag houses, and all these kind of things. But we also have a complete service offering where we can sell a piece of equipment like this, but we can also service it and maintain it for the customer during the whole lifetime. So something like this, it lasts 20, 30 years. And we're already today servicing those, doing repairs, inspections, retrofits, and these kind of things. And we have a very solid experience with 75 years has been said here, where we have expertise, understanding of certain applications and industries and markets. But the new thing, as Hans was explaining here as well, is we're also now adding the diagnostics and analytics parts to this. So we are able now, for a piece of equipment like this, have sensors installed which measure all the critical process parameters, and also dashboard them out in a way that they can be constantly monitored, not like Hans was saying every 3 weeks, but on a constant basis. And that gives us an opportunity then to serve the customer better, because they can plan their maintenance better, they can be ensured it actually work, and they can both save costs and minimize their risks. So I was going to show one example for a customer where we have tied this together. So this is a real customer example where we have our sensors installed. So we got here a fault alert for this customer. There was an investigation made where they saw, okay, this it seems to be strange. So we reached out, contacted the customers, and took action. And then the problem was fixed without any issues for the customer before we were able to intervene before anything bad happened. And then it's back then to our monitoring, and we continue monitoring this. So this is the kind of solutions we can offer now to our customers. So I think going forward, we'll still continue to sell the kind of equipment which we show. That will always be a core of what we're doing. We'll continue to service it and do aftermarket, but we're also now with these new capabilities able to offer better service contracts where we can tell a customer, look, we can monitor your equipment and make sure it's actually working on a day-to-day basis, and we can take on ourselves that we'll do the repairs, the maintenance, and whatever is needed to make sure it works. And we can either do that on existing customers or on new equipment as we sell it. So that is something new. So like Amazon is basically building their whole success on existing technology to a large extent, digitalization and putting all of that together with the right analytics and the right data makes it possible to actually do things differently. So in process technology, all our filters are digitalized at the end of this year, and I think for the whole of Nedderman, sometimes next year we'll have all our filters up and running and be able to offer these kind of services. So in a summary, I think, as I started off saying before, we are actually again in a new industrial revolution. And new technologies, connectivity, analytics, artificial intelligence, and all this kind of stuff actually enables new business models. So like in our case, we can now not only offer to sell a piece of equipment and then be available to sell the service when they need, we can actually go out and take on whole service contracts and do that better than the customer can do themselves, both at a lower cost and at a higher reliability. I think the key, but it's important to remember that the key of our business will still be around the basic products. That's why I show you this video. This is not a simple technology that anyone can do. But for us, taking that competence, which is existing, and combining it with something new, that is what it is. And that will help us then to create new values to our customers that they didn't have before, where they basically save cost, get higher level of reliability of their equipment, and basically get less to worry about, so that they can focus on their core processes, I'm trying to say. So that is basically the new thing we are working on. Do you still want to see some organograms or drawings?
I'm really happy.
You're good with that?
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thomas and Hans, I think the founding father of Nedderman, Mr. Nederman himself, would have been really proud of you.
Thank you.
Hopefully.
This is cool. I mean, I also, one thing that come to mind when showing all this, I guess you're also making sure that the clients are dependent upon you for a very long time.
Yep.
I mean, you talk about customer value, and that's a good thing, of course. But also from a shareholder perspective, I guess it's quite interesting that you enable a long-term client relationship.
I think it's yeah, for sure. But in the end of the day, it is when we have done this development and trying to launch a complementary or additional business model to what we're already doing. I think it's the same thing. We always try to have the customer first and ask ourselves, how do we create more value for the customer? And of course, if we can do that better than our competitors, which I think we can, then that will create customer loyalty and long-term business. So,
because correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean traditionally you've sold a device, and then you send that device to the client or you install it, and then 10 years later you come back and maybe the client wants a new one.
Yeah, pretty much. And then what we have done here over the latest years, we have spent a lot of effort building our aftermarket business. So we don't only do that. I think in all parts of the world, maybe more in Europe and the US than in Asia, but in those countries we are already today providing aftermarket service. But it's more on the line that the customer would basically they have ownership of their equipment and they call us when they have a problem. Now this enables us to be more proactive and look in the system and say, look, it seems like you have a problem here. Do you want us to come out and fix it for you? Or even saying that, why don't you even worry that we'll watch it and fix it when it needs changes. So that is on an evolving scale where first we had the production of the products, then we have the general competence of doing the service and the aftermarket. Now we have the capabilities to also drive aftermarket in a more proactive way.
It's a bit like Kone in the elevator business.
Maybe so. I am not so familiar with
They're
exactly
very
that,
successful. I'm looking at the chairman here. Kone, they're very successful as well. Yeah.
Good.
Sven, any reflections?
I think that they have said that the important thing is take control of the emissions, because that has been one of the, if you install, like you say, and then you come back a few years later and look at it, you have changed your processes. We see over and over again that this is not the core competence, not interesting. They are interested in getting high quality lead, high quality aluminium or whatever. And then they let this slip. They are still maybe within the range of what they have agreement, the authority and so on, but they could be more efficient. And it could be very good for the environment. If you take, I think you mentioned aluminium or Hans. Aluminium, you normally, you have recycling, you melt it, and then you release a lot of air, hot air that has to be taken care of. And there's a lot of gases, particles, and so on. And in order to neutralize some of these gases, you infuse bicarbonate or calcium or something like that. And that seems quite okay. But if you, from a small recycling plant in Sweden, sends 4 to 5 trucks, big lorries, down to a salt mine in Germany, it's not very environmentally friendly. But if you take control over your processes, you do not have to overdo it. If you control it all the time, you can maybe do with 1 or 2 trucks. It's good for the environment, it's more efficient, and it's also good for the economy. So that's what it's all about. It is for the common good, and hopefully, as a shareholder, we can make some money out of it as well.
Excellent, excellent. So a win-win solution.
Yeah, and as a mega trend also, just to add on to that, a trend is clearly, so when we go out to our customer base, they have fewer and fewer people on site to really understand these type of processes as well. So the need for someone to come in who are really an expert on providing,
Because they
this
rely on you.
yeah, exactly, and because all these companies are downsizing and outsourcing more and more of this kind of general engineering, even around the core processes. So sometimes the customer have a very limited understanding of especially these kind of processes. So if we can take over and help them manage part of that, that makes their life much easier as well.
So when we will, I mean, obviously we will be back before the 150-year anniversary. But in 10
I promise you 100 years we will be here again.
Okay, 100 years. So when we celebrate the Nederman 100 years, where will this business, the service business, be, you think? I mean, speculative, but still, that's what we do.
Very difficult to say. Very difficult, but I think that there will be more. The trend is that you outsource. The bankers outsource everything. You have to stand in the rain to get some cash. Now you don't even get some cash. Yeah. So I think that there will be a trend towards services that we will have, as an expert, take a bigger responsibility. Okay, this is yours. But it's going to be a long journey because it's a conservative industry. And I think the restrictions will be more on our customer side than in our side before they have the decision. You have the power struggle between, we have some example, the corporate and the OSHA, the occupational health guys, they want us to take responsibility. The global purchasing manager say, no, stop. We cannot have only one supplier. We need to do this. But then you have, so it's an evolving thing. But as long as we can take the battle and show these are the benefits, these are the costs, and these are the good for the environment and for your production, I think we can win that battle.
Do we have any questions from out here? Please, of course. Yeah, you have many questions, don't you? Yeah. Where are you from?
I have my own company since 2 weeks.
All right.
But we know each other from Lund.
Right.
You said before that you add lots of sensors to the customer's plants and then you could be a proactive. Who owns the data? Do you do that or do the client do that?
That is one of the questions, and I think that it can either be both. Because for sure, we could both sell this kind of a solution to someone and say, yeah, we basically get this whole IoT interface with dashboards and sensors and controls. That's one model. And then they have to take care of it themselves. That's one way of doing it. The way I think we can add most value to the customer is not selling software, but actually have, like Amazon has done, have it as an integrated way and help us service the customer better. And in that context, we need to have access to the data if we're going to do that. But I think, just to add on to what Sven said, going forward, there will be a large set of customers for the foreseeable future who wants to continue buying equipment exactly the same way they have done, and you know, manage the service the way they've done, because they have the capabilities and want to do that. Some customers want to say, yeah, we want to have these capabilities and do this ourselves and so forth. And some customers want to say that an increasing amount from a low level, an increasing amount of customers will also say, why don't Nederman take care of these for us as well? So there will be these different types of segments of the market. And I think that is a question which depends then on which model the customer will choose. It's a long answer, but I hope it answers the question.
The answer was both yes and no.
Yes.
Okay.
And no.
And no. But and the logistics now, I mean, and the analytics here, you're able to roll this out next year?
That's we're able to do. We are, as I said, what Tomas is, he's in process technology, that you saw the huge installations and so on. We are working in my division towards more the downstream manufacturing industry. So it's generally smaller or mid-sized systems to very small systems. So what we are doing here is we are launching these smart filters so that we can industrialize this and not make, let's say, a unique customer solution each and every time, you know, to
But with the ability to track.
To track that. So
Okay.
that's going to come out. Those filters will be connected. We can connect that to a larger system. We make it available on devices 24/7. So it's real-time control over the process data, you know, and 100% availability 24/7. That we can connect up. Then it depends on what type of industry and application, what you measure. This is also important, as Sven was talking about, that our customers, this is not their core focus. So sometimes they don't know what they measure or why they measure something or what is critical. That's where we come in with our 75 years of experience as well.
But we like to measure things.
We like to measure things, track things, see trends, and then you can, you know, predict what will happen, what has happened. You can see maybe that there is a disturbance. You were talking about aluminum, some disturbance in the customer's process that affected this, and they can maybe find out other values. Oh, then we can do like this in our core process and optimize that. So this is a value generating, you know, machine in a way. And I think we don't know all the values that we will create actually today, but we will learn as we go along.
And we wish you all the luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.